Welcome to North Star HR's YouTube channel. I am here today with my buddy Nate, who is a benefits consultant. And as we head into Open Enrollment 2026, you have questions as an employee, and we are here to answer as many of them as we can. So we're gonna start with kind of the definitions, right? So a little bit longer explanation of what some of these different terms are that you're hearing or you're seeing in your enrollment guide and what they mean to you as an employee. So Nate, let's do PPO first. What is a PPO? What does it mean as an employee?
So PPO typically is the availability to have a broader opportunity to go find and use whatever doctor or provider you'd like to get to. Ultimately, it provides you options, and the ability to go to anyone, anywhere is what people typically want in most situations. A PPO typically has higher premiums. When you think of premiums, which is another benefit phrase, it's cost to be able to fulfill the employer side of the portion of the premiums and the employee side, which really means in your mind, you should be thinking your cost coming out of payroll per check, right? And so PPOs have higher premiums, so you're spending more money typically out of pocket. But when you go see a doctor, usually it's less cost because you've already spent the money in higher premiums. So
yeah, I think it's really important to keep in mind that everything in the benefits universe is about trade-offs. So typically when you win in one category, you may not win in another one. And you have to decide for you, your family, your situation, what makes the most sense. Is it to spend a little more through payroll and spend a little less as you go? Or is it to do the opposite, right? You have to decide what makes sense for you. It's also really important in PPOs to keep in mind that you still have deductibles, you still have max out of pocket. Even though your premiums are higher, you will still incur cost in some way, shape, or form for everything that you do outside of preventative care.
Correct.
So you're still going to pay, it's just what you pay is maybe a little bit less than some of the other options that are available.
This is true.
Super important definition to know. So on the flip side, let's talk about high deductible plans. So now that we know in the PPO universe, I'm gonna pay more in payroll, but pay less when I go, what does the high deductible universe look like?
So kind of opposite conversation, high deductible, right? The deductible, again, in some of the other videos that we've talked about, is a higher cost to just having insurance kick in. So you may spend more out of pocket to get to that deductible. Once you reach a deductible, which is another crazy benefits conversation or crazy phrase that we use, it's essentially just the number you need to hit in order to make sure that insurance starts kicking in. So you pay more out of pocket, but you pay less in premium cost, less out of payroll cost per payroll check in order to have that situation. The unique thing about a high deductible plan is that you can couple that with an HSA. So I could then choose to put money away to cover some of those costs associated to a higher deductible. So for example, if I wanted to put away $2,000, it gets me to, let's say I have a $5,000 deductible, it eliminates that potentially that $2,000 cost. So I'm really only gonna pay $3,000 out of pocket. Between the two scenarios, we always look at some of the tools and resources your employer offers. Some great tools out there when you're going through open enrollment to say, am I gonna have a surgery this year? Do I see large costs coming? Maybe am I having a child? And it will give you direction and give you some options to, should I go for a PPO this year? Should I go for a high deductible healthcare plan? But please consult someone in the business that may help you kind of drive that direction.
Yeah, it's not the same. A lot of times I hear people go, high deductibles are, your insurance does nothing until you hit the deductible. That's not necessarily true, because on a high deductible plan, you are still paying negotiated rates. So you're not paying the super highly inflated sticker price, for example. It may not be as low as the cash pay number. That number is typically the lowest. Your sticker price number is up here. Your high deductible payment is whatever your insurance company has negotiated, which is typically somewhere in the middle. So your insurance is still working for you on a high deductible plan, even if you haven't hit the deductible yet. It's just not working for you in the way that maybe it always has in the past. So I think that's something really important to keep in mind. Again, knowing your own situation, knowing your financial situation, having a conversation with someone who specializes in this, that can talk to you one-on-one and talk about your specific situation, that is invaluable if you're not sure what to do. So what about this ICHRA thing that everybody's talking about? Is that a thing? What does that look like compared to the other two?
So let's talk briefly a little bit about why did ICHRA come to the market. Over the last 4 years, we've seen healthcare costs rising. And there's also a lot of different verticals, different business types that are really good fits for ICHRAs. Maybe a lot of part-time employees or employees that aren't making a high wage, but ICHRAs are really good for also employers that are feeling like they can't control their costs. And so essentially an ICHRA, which is an individual contribution that you give to each employee, you essentially as an employer have a budget. Now, I don't want to speak too much to the employer side, we're talking to employees. So if you're an employee today, you would essentially receive a budget from your employer. You could go to that exchange market based on the state that you live in, and you buy individual coverage. What's unique about it is a lot of ICHRA models today, you can plug in your pharmacy prescription spends, you can plug in your doctor types, and it will tell you which network is best provided for you. You have more options, you have coverage that maybe is a little bit more flexible in the market than an employer-sponsored plan that has one network for you. You got to go through that network. That's typically how employers provide employee-based contribution plans.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note with an ICHRA that the ICHRA is not associated to your health insurance. Your health insurance is not associated to your employment. That is probably the biggest difference. So yeah. PPOs and high deductibles, that is directly associated to a specific employer. The ICHRA piece, it's really all about the money and has nothing to do with the insurance itself. So they give you the money to go buy your own insurance, which means that in the event you were to separate from that employer, your health insurance remains unchanged. It's the financials of it that are going to change for you. So that's a really big difference and something to keep in mind for those of you that are in really high turnover industries.
Yep.
So I'm going to put you on the spot, a question I didn't ask you ahead of time.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about for companies that have a lot of 1099s that are thinking, maybe I do an ICHRA as a way to help my 1099s because they're not employees, but I want to help them. Can I do that?
So there's a lot of questions. In the marketplace today, you can provide coverage, but it's typically for full-time W-2 employees.
Yes.
1099s, there's a whole nother conversation we can have about that. There are plan types that you can offer, but an ICHRA is for a full-time based employee. It's typically to cover the mandated ACA contribution levels. And in an ICHRA program today, all ICHRA providers typically follow the compliance regulations to still provide employer-funded solutions. I didn't say this earlier, and you mentioned this. It is still a pre-tax option for all employers. So the good news is you still get that pre-tax benefit also to the employee. But at the end of the day, the ICHRA model is meant for full-time employees.
Yeah, and I'm going to caution like I always do because I will always wear my HR hat. 1099s are not always legit. So just because you want to do a 1099 doesn't mean that it's legal to do so, having nothing to do with benefits, just from an HR compliance perspective.
Yep.
Just because you like a 1099 as an option doesn't mean it's legal. But everything that we're talking about is employee W-2 material. Because as a 1099, you should not be providing 1099s with benefits like health insurance. It's one of the biggest reasons that'll get you in trouble when it comes time to a classification investigation, whether or not you did it right, is are you providing employee-looking things to people that you're paying 1099? That's a big no-no.
Yeah.
We want to make sure we don't do that. So we've got all these different options. What about direct primary care, and how does that play into this conversation with the PPO, the high deductible, the ICHRAs, the blah, blah, blahs?
Yeah. So direct primary cares are kind of a layered approach. You have, obviously, the PPO is your employer-sponsored plan, but you can go to a direct primary care option. It's another ability to use your network and go to these different providers that have facilities available to you to have more of a white glove or concierge type experience. So you can go to the same doctor or registered nurse or provider that will give you one-to-one conversations, will talk to you about your annual physicals. Typically you communicate via technology. There is an annual cost typically to this, and any additional care options like this are typically more cost is going to be transferred to you as the individual or as the member, we call them. Now, some employers in the market are now choosing to provide that to some of the employees in the market. So you should look into that if there's a direct primary care option. It's a great way to, as we talked in other videos, to create more preventative means to be able to take in control of your health care and really your care for you and your family. But I recommend it personally. Doesn't mean that everyone has to choose one. You have to look at your individual situation and decide, is this a cost I want to spend?
Yeah, and I think one of the great things for employers who are in a situation, or employees, where you have employees in rural places, right?
Yeah.
Nate and I live in Phoenix. We have anything we want within a 5-minute radius of our house.
Yep.
But we understand here in the United States, there are a lot of rural areas.
Yep.
And because direct primary care operates mostly through technology,
Yep.
it can be a great way to meet some folks in the middle to provide resources to them that are not available in person in the places that they may live.
Yep.
So there's always options out there. There are even more options than what we've talked about here. Literally, the list is like this long of things that you can do under the Affordable Care Act and still be compliant. This is where having the right broker matters, right, Nate?
Yes. So without a strategy and without your broker understanding, what do you really care about? There are definitely different principles when it comes to controlling your healthcare spend, understanding, are you in a growth mode? Are you trying to scale your organization? But really understanding your goals. We can then strategically consult you on what does that look like. The other thing is there are constant new innovative strategies that are coming out, whether you have 5 employees with an ICRA model or you have 25, 50 employees where you can go into a self-funded or level funded option. And so you've got to just have a relationship, a true partner that stands in a gap and is willing to have conversations with you, not just at renewal time, but times throughout the year to consult you on where your business is going and what are some of the new methods in the market. Now, it can be easy to throw out just ideas, but someone who listens, who understands you, and then can provide offerings, because I can put 20 different plan types in front of you, but if I understand you and can whittle down what I think is best fit for you, I can then make more specific decisions and educational tools for you to make better business decisions. So
yeah, and I think as an employee, one of the things to keep in mind is that in order to provide advice on health insurance or any other kind of insurance for that matter, there is licensing required. And 99.9% of HR people, myself included, are not licensed.
Yeah.
So it's important to make sure that when you want to have that conversation that you're having it with the right person. If your employer's broker does not offer employee level services, feel free to go knock on the door of your HR person and say, I think we need to get a new benefits broker because they won't help me.
Yeah.
It is 100% reasonable, 100% realistic that the benefits broker or the benefits consultant that represents an employer will have one-on-one conversations with employees that want to have them. So if you need to have that conversation, that very specific, here's my situation, what do I do? Have that conversation with someone who is licensed first and foremost. They are the only ones qualified to provide you with that level of advice. And if you're not getting that through your employer, it's time to start knocking on some doors and suggest that it's time for a change.
Yep.
We just went through a whole lot of things. And I get that there's a ton of questions out there. Again, I'm not licensed. Nate can help you to a certain extent. He is licensed, but he may not know your employer's specific situation. So as an employee, go to your employer first, ask for your broker, the broker's contact information, talk to them first. If they're not helpful, let's see what we can do to help you knock on those doors and get those changes made so you can get the support that you deserve as an employee to make an informed decision.
Yep.
Keep checking out more videos. We've got more educational content here for you as we head into Open Enrollment 2026.